A young, orphaned Jewish girl rises from obscurity to become a queen in a foreign land, risking her life to save her people from annihilation. Her story is not only a tale of beauty and bravery, but also one of divine providence and destiny. This is the story of Queen Esther, a woman whose courage and faith changed the course of history. But what made her so extraordinary? How did she transform from an ordinary girl to a hero celebrated for generations? Let's journey into the Bible's captivating book of Esther to uncover a story filled with danger, drama, and deliverance. Chapter 1. The Fall of Queen Vashti. Our story begins in the mighty Persian Empire, under the reign of King Xerxes, also known as Ahasuerus, a ruler renowned for his vast wealth and unchecked power. One day, the king hosted a lavish feast in the capital city of Susa, a celebration so extravagant that it lasted 180 days, showcasing the empire's splendor to nobles and officials from far and wide. As the feast drew to a close, Xerxes extended the festivities to all the people of the city, with another 7 days of drinking and merriment in the palace gardens. Amid the revelry, the king, emboldened by wine, decided to parade his queen Vashti before the drunken crowd. Her beauty, he thought, would further display his power and riches. But Vashti, known for her dignity and strength, refused the king's command. She would not be reduced to an object for others' amusement, a bold stand in an era when women had little voice or autonomy. Vashti's defiance enraged Xerxes, whose pride was deeply wounded. His advisors, fearing her actions would inspire other women to defy their husbands, pressured him to act decisively. As a result, Vashti was stripped of her title and banished, paving the way for the remarkable rise of Esther. Chapter 2. Esther becomes queen. In the bustling city of Susa, the capital of the Persian Empire, lived Esther, a young Jewish girl with an extraordinary destiny. Orphaned at a young age, she was lovingly raised by her cousin Mordecai, a devout and wise man who worked at the king's gate. Mordecai's guidance helped shape Esther into a woman of quiet strength, grace, and integrity. Together they lived discreetly, blending into a culture that did not recognize or understand their Jewish heritage, a secret they carefully guarded. When Queen Vashti was removed, King Xerxes began a kingdom-wide search for her replacement. Beautiful young women from all over the empire were gathered and brought to the royal palace to undergo months of preparation before meeting the king. Among them was Esther, whose natural beauty and humble spirit immediately set her apart. Under the watchful eye of Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the harem, Esther won favor. Her poise, wisdom, and kindness left an impression not just on Haggai, but on everyone she encountered. When it was her turn to meet the king, Esther's charm and grace captivated Xerxes. In an unexpected and remarkable turn, she was chosen to wear the royal crown and become Queen of Persia. Chapter 3. The Plot Against the Jews. As Esther settled into her new role as queen, the kingdom's political landscape grew increasingly perilous. Among King Xerxes' most trusted advisors was Haman, an ambitious and arrogant man who wielded enormous power. Haman's pride demanded absolute respect, and he expected everyone in the empire to bow before him as a sign of submission. However, Mordecai, Esther's cousin and steadfast protector, refused to bow to Haman. As a devout Jew, Mordecai's allegiance was to God alone, and he would not compromise his faith. This small act of defiance infuriated Haman and wounded his ego. To Haman, Mordecai's resistance was not just a personal affront, it became an obsession. Haman's hatred grew, and soon it extended beyond Mordecai to all the Jewish people in the empire. Driven by malice, Haman devised a sinister plan to annihilate them. Crafting his scheme with cunning precision, he approached King Xerxes and painted the Jews as a threat to the empire, claiming they followed their own laws and undermined royal authority. Persuaded by Haman's deceitful words, Xerxes authorized a decree to destroy the Jews, sealing their fate with his royal signet ring. The date for the massacre was set, and the edict spread across the vast empire, plunging the Jewish communities into despair. Fear gripped their hearts, for they were powerless against the king's irrevocable decree. Yet amidst the looming darkness, hope flickered. Though hidden within the palace walls, Queen Esther remained, and her courage would soon be tested. Chapter 4. Esther's Dilemma. News of Haman's wicked plans spread like wildfire, and Mordecai, grief-stricken yet resolute, tore his clothes and donned sackcloth and ashes as a public display of mourning. Outside the palace gates, he wailed bitterly, his cries reaching the ears of Queen Esther through her attendants. Mordecai's anguish was not just for himself, but for all the Jewish people whose lives were now under an imminent threat. Determined to act, Mordecai sent a message to Esther, imploring her to use her unique position as queen to intercede on behalf of her people. But Esther faced a harrowing choice. The Persian law was clear. Anyone who approached the king without being summoned would be executed unless the king extended his golden scepter, a rare gesture of mercy. Even as queen, Esther had not been called to the king's presence for 30 days, leaving her uncertain of her standing in Xerxes' favor. Fear gripped her heart, but Mordecai's words pierced through her hesitation. "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Realizing the gravity of her calling, Esther resolved to act, but not without spiritual preparation. She instructed Mordecai to gather the Jewish community in Susa to fast and pray for 3 days, while she and her maids did the same. It was a moment of surrender, as Esther embraced her role in this divine plan. With unwavering faith, she uttered the words that would define her courage: "If I perish, I perish." These words marked a turning point, as Esther readied herself to risk everything for her people. She would soon step into the unknown, armed with faith, wisdom, and the hope that her courage might change the course of history. Chapter 5. Esther's Bold Move. On the 3rd day of fasting and prayer, Esther prepared herself for the most daring act of her life. Clothed in her finest royal robes, she exuded grace and courage, masking the trepidation that churned within her. The halls of the palace, where power and judgment resided, loomed as she made her way to the king's throne room. As she stepped into the king's presence, all eyes turned to her, and the tension in the room was palpable. King Xerxes looked up, his expression unreadable. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, but then the king extended his golden scepter, a gesture of acceptance that saved Esther's life and signaled she could speak. "What is it, Queen Esther?" he asked. "What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom it will be given to you." But Esther did not reveal her true purpose just yet. She understood the importance of timing and the value of strategy. With a calm and measured voice, she invited Xerxes and Haman to a banquet she had prepared, choosing to lay the groundwork carefully. At the banquet, the king repeated his offer, yet Esther once again delayed her plea, requesting their presence at a second banquet the following day. This act of patience demonstrated her wisdom, as she sought the perfect moment to reveal Haman's sinister plot. Unbeknownst to Haman, the trap was slowly being set, and Esther's bold move was only the beginning of the justice that would unfold. Chapter 6. A Divine Twist. As Esther prepared for the second banquet, an unexpected twist began to unfold, orchestrated by a higher hand. That night, King Xerxes found himself unable to sleep. Restless, he ordered the royal chronicles to be brought and read to him, a decision that would set the stage for a remarkable turn of events. As the scribe recited the records, Xerxes was reminded of a pivotal moment when Mordecai uncovered a conspiracy to assassinate him. The king, startled by the realization, asked, "What honor or recognition has Mordecai received for this?" The answer was none. Mordecai's loyalty had gone unrewarded. This oversight suddenly became the king's priority, Meanwhile, Haman, consumed with hatred for Mordecai, was already plotting to ask for his execution. Early the next morning, he entered the palace, eager to request Mordecai's death. But before Haman could speak, Xerxes addressed him first. What should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Believing the king spoke of him, Haman eagerly described an elaborate ceremony, dressing the man in royal robes, placing him on the king's horse, and parading him through the city while proclaiming his greatness. To Haman's horror, Xerxes commanded, "Go at once. Do this for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended." Seething with humiliation, Haman had no choice but to obey. He personally led Mordecai through the streets of Susa, announcing his honor to the crowds. Each step was a bitter reminder of his unraveling plans. What Haman didn't realize was that this public humiliation marked the beginning of his ultimate downfall, a divine twist in the story that demonstrated the power of justice and the unpredictability of fate. Chapter 7. Esther's Revelation. The atmosphere at the second banquet was charged with anticipation. Esther, poised and resolute, knew the time had come to reveal the truth. As King Xerxes and Haman enjoyed the feast, the king once again asked Esther for her request, promising her up to half the kingdom. This time, Esther did not delay. With a calm yet determined voice, she began, "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." Xerxes, stunned, demanded, "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther turned to Haman and declared, "The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman." The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap. Xerxes, overwhelmed with fury, stormed out into the palace garden to process the betrayal. Haman, realizing his life hung by a thread, threw himself onto Esther's couch to beg for mercy. Just then, Xerxes returned to witness the scene and misinterpreted it as an assault on his queen. Enraged beyond measure, Xerxes ordered Haman's immediate execution. In a grim twist of fate, Haman was hanged on the very gallows he had constructed for Mordecai. It was a striking moment of poetic justice, as the wicked man's schemes turned against him. Chapter 8. The Jews are saved. With Haman's death, a new chapter of hope began, but the danger was far from over. The decree to annihilate the Jewish people, sealed with the king's ring, could not be revoked under Persian law. However, King Xerxes granted Esther and Mordecai the authority to write a new decree to counteract it. Acting swiftly, Mordecai drafted an edict allowing the Jews to defend themselves against any attackers. It was sent out across the vast Persian Empire, translated into every language, and delivered to every province. This decree gave the Jewish people the legal right to assemble, defend their families, and destroy those who sought to harm them. When the fateful day arrived, the tables turned. Instead of being victims, the Jewish people stood united and fought back with courage and determination. Across the empire, their enemies were defeated, and the Jewish community emerged victorious. Chapter 9. The Festival of Purim. The story of Esther and the miraculous deliverance of her people did not end with their victory. To honor their survival and the triumph over their enemies, the Jewish community established the Festival of Purim, a celebration of joy, gratitude, and remembrance. The name Purim comes from the word pur, meaning lot, which refers to the lots Haman cast to determine the date of the massacre. What Haman intended for destruction became a day of celebration, a powerful reminder that the plans of the wicked can be overturned by divine intervention. If Esther's story inspired you, share this video with someone who needs encouragement. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss more incredible Bible stories and lessons of faith. Together, let's explore the timeless truths of God's Word and uncover how they apply to our lives today. See you in the next video.